For all this, basically, he's a fascist. He broke away from the other major fascist part. He's like, whoa, 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 come on, guys, this is a little too crazy. We are true fascists, okay? We're no Nazis, we're no crazy people. And they're in pretty dire straits overall because they're in the Far East and they're hoping to reunite the fascist party, basically. I do want to say, though, like, I've never actually done this for realty. This is like has all the economy shit, all the how it's actually supposed to be nowadays, and I'm turbo ass at it. It's so bad. I'm so bad. And this is basically just saying that this guy's disappearing people. He's being a good old fascist, and he's the last true fascist in the area. The other side of the ocean is heaven on earth, the United States of America, land of freedom and liberty, of countless land of infinite money. Smith, from his days and nights in the city of Bluffington, had seen America from the covers of magazines and the brief, barely legible photographs of monochrome newspapers. War was business, and business was good, yes. But he didn't want to shoot at natives forever. No, he had dreams beyond, to settle in America, and finally end a roaming, sedentary life. An image of Glatchy Gliz. It got him to go with Warbell's latest scheme. No doubt, its occupants had held the same kind of dream that Smith had. Winnings of spin on life, betting against fate, and coming up on top again and again. Smith would rather be in the front lines right now than whatever day passed quickly in assignment. However, to guide them to the new quarters, to guide them through the modest town, and generally help them acclimate, he went over to his own words in his mind, the greetings, the jokes, and how he'd handle the juggle, especially inflated egos. He lit a cigarette and took a drag. He'd play it by ear. Fuck it. His future problems were the future self. For now, he enjoyed a small luxury afforded to him and made a joke about his past. Calm before the storm. And the freaking Diamond Dogs are also from Metal Gear. Or these are real things, and I'm just dumb. I only think they're from Metal Gear because they are in Metal Gear as well. Well, I want to show you. There's two more references to Metal Gear. You got Tell Boss Cincha, and also freaking Foxhound, and Shadow Base Moses, bro. That's also another Metal Gear reference. What the heck? Jack handed his father's gun over, which is not the same Jack in Metal Gear, but obviously they probably used Jack because of it. Texas Metal Jack. Amerikansky, eh? Think you're a cowboy hunting Indian in forest. Keep shooting like Debel and men here slit your throat with vodka bottle themselves. The men turned to the range. Other 5 curious shooters. This goes for everyone. Come to Magadan. Here you are not to fight naked, Tarkar. With bow, you fight army with more gun and brain than you all combined. Forget Hollywood Dermo. You are Black Bear, finest soldier of fortune, entire world. And we teach you to fight, like one, or you die like one. The Texan barely gathered himself. The Russian walked away. Wait, my gun, sir? Get better gun from supplies. And tell Tofrim, boss sent you. Python, said boss as he left. Is your name now, like your bad gun. Oh. Shadow Moses! A haven of our own. Warbell stumbled out the door, drunk. They'd hit the jackpot. Matakovsky was out of there, somewhere probably sulking in the shadows, but out of the picture nonetheless. Radovsky was dead with madness, buried 6 feet deep in the ground, along with his body, all the former RFP stronghold of Magadan. Partying begun, soldiers and local tenants alike. In the next room over, the rest of his officers convened, their voices like incandescent bangs and thuds from the wooden wall. Sometimes he could hear a word or two emerge from the discussion, but his whiskey-addled mind soaked every last bit with liquor, and the phrase slid drowsily down into his brain. No matter, he could trust his officers. They were loyal to more than their paycheck. He looked at the tea-colored substance lying in wait in the shot glass on the table, inviting him to take a single sip. Maybe he can, maybe not. Better to not risk it. Tonight was a fateful night. His neighbors were making history. A door creaked open. Sir, one of the officers said, we have an important question. Spit it out already, Werbil said, growing impatient. This whiskey is mighty tempting. We nailed the specific nature of the Republic, sir. There's only one question left. I think you should answer. It's about the name. Werbil stood up and poised his theatrical and grandiose display. He said, almost at the top of his lung, we're west from Alaska. Toppling from his feet, catching himself on the second. West Alaska. The officers blinked at him. Excellent choice, sure. Sir, why the hell not? Republic of West Alaska. That's hilarious. I guess, yeah, we're just West Alaska now. A soldier's constitution.
Yeah, I've got
So he's literally just like drunk and just not paying attention. He's all the way out of it. This is him trying to make a constitution. A fearful French aide said, Sir, Mr. Wilbo, decided against replying. His throat was parched, and whatever sound that emanated from it, no mortal human being could ever withstand. He could do with a glass of warm water. But no, constitution first, sir. Damned French and their constitutions. What did they know about running nations? 2 empires, 3 republics, and a country that sunk into the clutches of fascism. He grumbled, he complained, he shuddered and shivered, sighing. He admitted that it would probably be best to do it sooner than later. He peered down the great sheet of paper and saw only just got onto minority protections. It was going to be a long day. Never really was a desk jockey. Field training. One of the unwritten rules Boss taught. Field training. One of the unwritten rules Boss taught in boot was that bitching is a free action, 10 kicks away from civilization and buried in sub-zero snow. Now Private Jack had a lot to bitch about. His stomach suffered hunger pangs for the breakfast, and his legs still ache from yesterday's march, frostbitten to skin. The fatigues weren't there. Half a brain went to keeping his mouth shut. Half-prayed witless bastard would enter his scope before sundown, and like his gripes were an incantation. The radio blared a live python, crackle and Russian tinge static. Patrol to a tree line, north 300 yard. I take left in 3. Fucking finally, copy boss, Jack near shouted as he reorientated himself. Springfield. Into the forest's edge. A promise 2 men shuffled out of the trees, the Arctic camouflage given away by gunmetal black. Why were they here, and what were they fleeing? Thoughts. Fleeing 4. They're fleeing thoughts. Be tired, hungry mirth. Sooner these yahoos drop dead, sooner the RTBs get a warm meal. Jack swallowed a breath and held, just like Niziar's taught. Hands steadied, he peered through the scope. The patrol had stopped. Left's buddy neared a pine and fiddled with his zipper trigger. Squeeze, fine cross, inched the pisser's head. That's right. Just painting the snow yellow before a bullet blows his brain out. In 1, 3, crack. It hit his head, swiveled in panic. Another crack, more distant, more left, lost his buddy, and barely covered up before a third knocked him face first into the piss. His own piss. Just like that, Jack had missed his ration ticket for tonight. Wasted shots, but only time in the firing range. Wait, he hit all his shots though, right? Another head swiveled in panic, his buddy face first in his own piss. Oh, they all survived though, I'm guessing. That's the only thing I could think of. Most in Magadan were perplexed with the eccentric Miguel Werbil III when he set up in shop in town weeks prior. A mirage of quality and equally strange characters began to walk the streets, speaking tongues few could understand. There was a change, vanishing of the black shirts from the streets. More militant, more mercenaries everywhere. At first, they thought it would fall pretty fast, but they kind of straightened out the new regime more than at least the fascists. They believed in their new, unorthodox rulers' benevolence. Anything must be better than the fascists. What's the catch, though? confessions of a mercenary. They let him wear his clerical attire, his black robes, and the crucifix wrapped around his neck. They gave him food, not rotten, bottom-of-the-barrel food, but actual edible meals, even after their tribunal sentenced him to death by firing squad. They did not stop the special treatment. The father, Alexander Min, took everything they gave him with a pinch of salt. Gifts from human beings such as them never surpass the grace of Lord. Holding it close to his heart, he accepted that his fate was so to suffer in the clutches of a soft mercenary. He refused to wear the attire, preferring instead to wear the threadbare, drab wear of the other prisoners. Today, however, was different. They forced him, first softly, then almost at gunpoint, to wear his clerical robes. He had a mission to talk to Warbel. They forced him to. He goes into his office. He says, "I have nothing to say to you," men said, "and I doubt that your intent to confess was ever pure." He resisted the urge to spit before his tribulation, the punishments for his failed trial. The two men stood and stared at one another before Warbel started. "Come on, father." Warbel flashed a smirk at the agitated father. "I'm irreligious. I just want to talk, to see how a man of God views my career. Perhaps even," he paused, "a blessing." He continued, "I like to believe that I have been a merciful in my youthful pursuit, industrious in the art of war, and an enthusiastic practitioner of the Lord's gift, resolving conflicts with violence." Thumbled with his revolver. "I am an arms dealer, and not just guns either. Men, tanks, artillery, guns, many things that render modern conflict possible." Stepping closer to the father, "I've committed a many sin. Father, I do not wish to turn back. Is there any way I can have your blessings? I can feel better." "No," Men cut him off. The surprise didn't register on Warbel's face. "I thought so." He grinned. "Take him away. We're done. Maybe this priest does have a spine." We're still not really going to be that free with low minimum wage. Functioning legislator, yeah. So we just want to be at least a little liberal just to have the people in America like us more. At least that was my reasoning. Dmitri swore under his breath as he stared at the window of his humble little newspaper office. A police guard parked across the street. The man in front seat was repeatedly glancing at his storefront in between snippets of conversation with his partner. Even as the typewriter clanked and presses did their work behind him, he stood silent as he watched their every action. After what felt like ages, the cops finished their talking and filed out their car. Dimitri's heart fell into his stomach as he watched them begin walking towards his door. The bell jingled as the police officer entered the building. Dimitri put on a fake smile and turned to them. "What seems to be the problem, officers?" "Did you publish this?" spoke the man in the front, holding out a newspaper with an all-too-familiar headline. "Thousands of troops without pension due to frightening, incompetent new policy." What was more damning was the line right above it. "The Magadan Eye," in Dimitri's newspaper. "Yes, but..." "Shut it down. By order of President Warbel." "But do you want me to force you? Because that can be arranged." Dimitri sighed. "No. Good, you have 24 hours to close this whole operation, or me and my partner will make another visit." As the officers left the building, Dimitri sighed and began walking into the back room where his staff worked, ready to deliver the news. The truth silenced. "Wait, what?" Back in the west, impossibly far from Magadan, lay the historic city settled by Peter the Great. The The subject of Warbell's interest, however, was in the landmark created by his niece Anna. She created the Versailles of Russia, the Winter Palace. It had been the seat of Kerensky's government for a time, but in the place in history was cemented by the Bolsheviks storming it in 1917, not to mention the scarring memory of its destruction filmed for all to see in the widely distributed films of the German invasion that Goebbels sure did know how to film, the obliteration of history. Never mind that, Warbell thought. The construction of the presidential palace would be built as closely to the Winter Palace as possible. Yeah, I feel like it's more fitting to have Winter Palace lay in Siberia, a land of snow and ice. He celebrated the occasion with some French wine, brought all the way from the Atlantic. Over a dozen bottles had been distributed to his men, who could partake in the celebration. They'd all enjoy their victory and their bountiful Siberian plan that Bukharin set up. It was a new nation, not Russian, but one of his own design. He was the master of war, with beloved soldiers who would march forward to crush whatever was in their path. Would Caesar hesitate? Would Napoleon? Actually, to hell with those losers. They were conquerors. He was a builder. He was going to be the Washington. That is how history would remember him. He would accept no excuse to this. 99% of failures come from people who make wrong decisions. I actually don't know what that last part is, but yeah. A new land. Johnny Walton never figured his humble little logging company would go international. Well, you could consider Canada international, but it was more like the good old USA's neighbor, hardly a foreign land. Magadan was more Americanized than he thought it would be. Plenty of billboards for familiar brands dotted the city, along with plenty of Americans that scuffled mercenaries that patrolled the streets, were even from his own country, though they swore allegiance to a new United States. It didn't matter. Johnny had the chance to expand his business like never before. When your business is trees, you're limited by the amount, not to mention reforesting after you're done, so the trees are there for you next time. Unlike back home, Johnny didn't have to worry about environmental protections or government overreach, so much as anything in the way of big government keeping a little guy like him down. Well, little being figurative, he still inherited the business from his pappy, and his pappy before him. But he was a worker. He was out here making a bet and taking a risk with a new country of the United States of Siberia. He was ambitious, son of a gun, willing to take on these kinds of risks. After he signed the dotted line, the USS government was going to give him thousands of acres of land to harvest lumber from. His company had endless growth and already investors back home. He's going to make these profits ramp up like never before. It's like the Wild Westers who had all been a lie, rather one big lie built on a mountain of smaller lies. Johnny Walton, CEO of the Walton Logging Company, was now a slave, the euphoria of what was promised by the United States of Siberia. He wanted to be the first, head of all the other competition. Well, he got his wish and now he was paying for it. At first he figured he could hire American workers, but his contract stated he needed to use local labor. Next he wanted to set up several camps at once, but the infrastructure wasn't there for it. Hell, it was hard enough getting gas for all of the trucks he needed. Production was almost 10 times slower than it was back home. The investors had stopped being interested at all. The only one recourse for Johnny to bail out was the only way he could be able to save his company without it falling apart, except he didn't read the fine print. He was bound to provide a certain amount of jobs and give a certain amount of revenue in taxes to the United States of Siberia, not to mention a certain amount of lumber to help with the rebuilding of so many homes destroyed in the unification of the East. That would have done a number with Walton Lumber. It wasn't simply Johnny either. All of the American companies that had come here were trapped at least a decade, if not more. It had not been so simple. The government here knew American companies would be too eager to expand, too happy to jump the gun, like Johnny had. He pulled another draw from his cigarette, gazing out the window of the Oregon beach home. He would have to sell it soon, to keep the company in the black. Oh, in the black? Damn you, Warbell. I don't really know what that means. He yelled into the night, but he knew no one but himself was to blame. There are two ways to conquer a country. One is by sword, the other is by debt. Oh, okay. That's actually pretty... I was thinking, this guy's like too cocky. This guy needs to get his stuff kicked in a little bit. And he did. Language barriers. Otto stared at the group of 10 Russians in front of them, their backs straight, their eyes attentive, with a hint of bitter resentment, their uniforms shabby and ill-fitting. Muttering to himself in German, the old mercenary straightened back up and took a puff of his cigarette as he ran through a hazy memory of the Russian classes he had taken when he was 15. Apparently, they qualified him to train troops. In stilted, broken Russian, he began speaking. Hello, good morning. Shit. What was the word for recruit? Students. The squad stared at him in utter confusion, but said nothing. Only silence reigned in the small field outside the barracks, save for the whistling of old Siberian winds. Otto's heart beat faster as he floundered for the right words to give his orders. Sweat was already collecting on his brow, beaten by freezing wind and leaving him an agonizing anachronistic feeling one gets when cold on a sunny day. Leaning to the side, one of the soldiers whispered to his mate, "Go figure, the idiot sends a kraut who can barely speak Russian to train us to fight, so we can pretend to be American." The other recruit chuckled in response, turning red with embarrassment at mockery he couldn't even grasp. Otto tried to helplessly to sentence that tell them to shut their damn mouths. "Quiet your faces. Today we'll drill open grass combat, or open field combat." Otto dropped his cigarette, stamping it into the ground before shakily reaching for another one. At this point, the soldiers were barely holding back hysterical laughter. The first words of the letter hung there alone, as Sullivan sat, trying to write something, anything, to his wife. He racked his brain for the words necessary to convey his emotions, a confusing mess in his mind. What was there to say? "Dear Mary, I'm sorry I abandoned you." Was he sorry when he was there? With Werbel's army, he felt the best he'd ever felt. He really thought of his family back in America, in the heat of the moment, and only slightly more when he was in Russia at all. "Dear Mary, I'm sorry your husband is lying. Cheating piece of shit. Dear Mary." He looked back at Liz, drinking in the bed, her nakedness covered only by the sheet. The two of them had been doing this for a while, and had celebrated the fall of Tomsk with an extended stay in one of the captured hotels. Liz was older than Mary by a full decade, closer to Patrick's age, and not as attractive conventionally, but she knew battle. When they were together in the trenches or in bed, he felt euphoria that Mary had never given him. Did he love his wife? He remembered he had, but did he still? "You want some?" Liz asked, offering him one of the special sugar cubes they brought to celebrate, temporarily interrupting his thoughts. "Not yet, Liz," he replied, before getting back to the letter. "Dear Mary, dear Mary." What could he even say? What would ever make up for the fact he barely remembered his daughter's name? Was it Sarah or Barbara, and he'd never seen her growing up? What would ever make up for the fact that he failed as a husband? He drank from the glass of water next to him. Nothing. He knew it would never be forgiven. He couldn't. He grunted, crumpling the letter, throwing it aside. He'd figure it out later. When his head was clear, he climbed back into bed with Liz. "I'll take the acid now, please," he said, smiling. "Dear Mary, sorry." Oh, that's kind of sad. The Wizard King of Siberia. Michel Werbel III looked out over the Siberian expanse, cigar clamped in his teeth. The wizard of whispering death was clad in heavy furs against the cold Russian Far East. Though the cold still stung his cheeks, he didn't care. Today was his day. Central Siberia was finally in his hands. The misfits, fanatics, and goons of the region are now 6 feet under. God damn, today was a good day to be Werbel III. The lights of Cheetah twinkled below him, from his balcony atop the former Tsar's palace. Just as the bright Siberian stars shone above him, Warbel was always surprised at how bright the stars could be on the frontier. He chuckled to himself at that the frontier this certainly was, and Warbel was a trailblazing cowboy with the Americans' guns and toys, ready to make his mark on the savage land. Yes, that's what he would call it, his frontier, the United States of Siberia. He could barely believe the circumstances that brought him to this place. The call from Vladivostok, the coup, the subsequent wars, everything could have turned on a dime and sunk Warbel like a stone, but Lady Luck had been in his corner the whole time. The wizard of whispering death let out a cloud of smoke against the night sky, savoring in his victory, and in the tobacco haze he could taste future victories to come. A freak of history is born. He is, I definitely would say, a freak of history. That guy is... United States of Siberia is such a silly name. I guess it's not really that silly, but like, I don't know, just because I know it's him that's doing that. So for this, I extended the olive branch by like doing diplomacy instead of doing the war, because for the first time ever, we both are the... Actually, I don't even know. I guess because they're good guys, they wouldn't mind doing that. But yeah, I'm gonna be trying to do this. Hey, isn't that the fucking the leader of Russia for a little bit, Boris Yeltsin? Like he was the first democratic leader, or am I tweaking? I love a traitor. Antily expected. I don't understand why this is a rejuvenated civil service. To see an American or a fellow Russian, not the 193 centimeter tall African man that followed him everywhere now. He was from the Congo, apparently, a mercenary who left during the war over there. Antily wasn't quite sure about it, or the man's bizarre Russian accent. In the end, it didn't matter. This man would be his protector for the rest of time. Antily had a significant post in Novosibirsk, unlike everyone else, of similar rank, was willing to work with the madman from Magadan. Now that it made him any friends, almost every single colleague of his greeted the provisional governor of the state of Novosibirsk with death threats, pinned to his door with a knife, of course, just to drive that little detail home. Antily looked for solace among the many mercenaries flowing into the city, but only found one that was a Congolese, a decent drinking companion, largely because he didn't speak. The others were loud, largely foreign mob that had no respect for anything besides their own pockets. It wasn't like his work was particularly important either. He signed off orders to repair railway lines, rebuild factories, and repurpose old military surplus to be used by it was a so ridiculous fucking name, the United States of Siberia. He had sold his soul not to the devil, but to an idiot. Still, the post brought him prestige, no small amount of money, and influence with senators of the other states for helping grease the wheels of bureaucracy in their favor. As he contemplated these matters, several bullets ricocheted from his window. The Congolese tackled him to the floor. Others opened fire. After a few seconds, no casualties on either side. Antily took a moment to get out of his chair and take a deep breath and start laughing until he started hard sobbing. That's rough. Warbel glanced up from the paper on his desk as he heard a knock on the door of his office. Sliding open a drawer with wooden grind, he slipped with his rudimentary drawings of a hypothetical AR into it, straightening the actual paperwork on his desk that did not feature sketches of rifles. He sat up on with that devilish grin of his before beckoning a visitor inside. Oh shit! That's a good one.
Right here.
Yeah, dude, I saw the flash, bro. That was an insane lightning strike, bro. The thing is as soon as he opened the door to come inside, me reading this, it like thunderstriked. So it was perfect timing for my reading. That's hilarious.
Like right outside the window. I was like opening the live stream. I was like, oh shit.
But yeah, it's a CIA guy. Good morning, Mr. Warbel. A vocalized Warbel chastening Mason rolled his eyes before replying. Mr. Robo Esquire, thank you, good man. What are you here to talk about today? Well, I'd like to make an offer for further cooperation between you and my homeland and this place. Just what exactly do you mean, friend? Well, you remember how you agreed to be our eyes and ears in Russia, correct? One of the best decisions in my career as president of Siberia, yes. We'd like to offer you one step further. What do you say? Further provisions, further American activity, some assistance from Uncle Sam. As long as you give a little room and board, understand? Wouldn't have it any other way. Take a seat, Mason. Let's get down to the specifics. 40th Meridian or bust. Destiny awaits. Read the recruitment posters. It's artwork depicting several arrows punching into Western Russia. Orbel found it a transition between an approving poster on his desk and seeing it plastered everywhere, a little strange. But such was life. God, how far they had come. He'd gone from a mercenary working for a fascist to the president of half a former Soviet Union. No matter what happened now, he'd made his mark. Yet that wasn't enough. He just wanted to be remembered. He'd have gone out in an amphetamine rush in some battlefield long ago. He was after something more. Guns, booze, and the glory. Oh, how the old days called back to him sometimes. But no, not that either. Orbel was invested in Russia now. He wanted to leave. He could have left with a fortune by 64. He sat at his desk every day because he believed in this project, however insane it was. Orbel glanced over at the maps on his desk, looking over the lines and arrows made up of his plan to invade West Russia. Nothing like the arrows on the poster. In the early days, the army was little more than professional bandits. They invaded what they could, take what they needed to live, and now they were thriving, though. And Russia was too. Magadan port was crowded every day. Maritime shipping breathing life into the Siberian economy. Russians lived with a measure of prosperity they haven't seen since 45. And they knew it. Orbel felt proud of himself as well. He was cultivating something beautiful in this accursed land, something Russia had only seen briefly in its entire history. Democracy. Russia would come to enjoy the same freedoms Americans have had since 1776. And its people would love liberty just like God-fearing Americans did back home. Like the hordes to the west, a symbol of the border. Orbel thought he had the fate on his side, and the most badass army in the world had ever seen on his back. Long live the reckless and the brave. So I actually did a peaceful unification this time for the first time. The United States of Siberia and the Federal Republic. These two nations are together. Which I guess I'm just annexing them because I do have higher thing. No blood was spilled. Now I can. Oh wait, do I have to? Oh what? I was not expecting this. Wait. Never mind. It's literally just this one state. Okay. I don't think that's too hard to beat. Oh my goodness, I did it. I'm such a gamer. A true United States. So, I'm guessing it just gives me... No? There's no even... What? Home. Don't give me that bullshit, Mary shouted through the call. Don't you fucking dare. How dare you come back with barely a word. How dare you try to insert yourself back in my life? Mary, Sullivan sighed as he leaned against the payphone. Mary, I'm back now. I'm sorry. I was... Sorry? You're sorry for what? Abandoning me? Abandoning Caitlin? She's almost 10, Patrick. You've never even met her. So that's her name. He thought aloud before realizing what he just said. A pause at the end of the line. Then she laughed in disbelief. I'm getting a lawyer and taking her with me. Don't look for us. Fuck you, Patrick. Then the dial tone. Patrick felt anger rush up in him, only barely stopped himself from smashing the receiver to bits. He stepped outside and spat at the bench, watching the passengers go back and forth at SFO. He'd been like them once 10 years ago, a family man working a regular job. He pitied them in his past self. They'd never know the things he'd saw and done. Not even a Pulitzer committee had when they'd mailed him the award. He sighed. He hated it here, the calm, the placidity, the everything 10 years ago on Russia was still Russia. A land of guns, sweat, and adrenaline, and a land of these people would know. Or none of these people would know. But he wasn't home. Or was he home? Did he even have a phone? Did he want to be home? No, he realized. Home was Liz and Mackenzie. Home was the trench and the armory, the whiskey and the acid. Home was danger and euphoria, not here. All he had left was Mary and his daughter, and now they're gone, without him. He felt nothing for the ground he stood on. It was time to go home. He went to the desk and told the lady there, I'd like the earliest ticket to Magadan. Do svidania, Mary. Well, that's the end of this playthrough. I don't think they have unification content in base TNO, so thanks for watching this very schizo-bad United States of Russia.